Welcome to worship today at Pittsburgh Mennonite Church. This is the fourth Sunday of Epiphany, and I am glad that you are able to join us, even though we continue through this time of pandemic and we are not together physically, and yet we can join together through Zoom or on YouTube. And as we come together today for worship, today we're going to be thinking about the idea of prophets, those who we may not recognize initially, who are called out to speak truth. We're thinking about healing that's grounded in a reality that may not yet be seen. As I walked around my garden, I see the blackberries that look so dead as they're attached to the trellis, but yet I know as long as they are grounded to the earth, that there is life that will come later. The microorganisms, the fungi, are there allowing the roots to remain through the winter. The same with the blueberries, that I know this spring and summer there was something coming that's different. Or the tulips completely hidden beneath the earth and the leaves. Or the fish in my fish pond, silent, still, not even moving in the ice cold water. So today, even though we are apart, and even though we can live in trying times and things that can be hard and weigh upon us and afflict us, I invite us to come together to recognize that there may be life and voices and truth coming from places we do not yet see, that we can light a peace candle. And I invite you to do it with me as we recognize that light can be in many places and that we can share it together. So, as we begin our worship today, let this light come out from each place where we are, and I hope that we can open our hearts and listen and hear what God might have for us today. What hopes do you bring to worship? And I encourage you to speak the lines you see in bold type aloud, even though you're muted on Zoom. We bring hope for health and wholeness. What afflictions do you bring to worship? Physical pain from illness and injury. Emotional pain from isolation and threatening situations. Mental pain from disease of many kinds and distorted views of ourselves and others. With all of these afflictions, it is hard to quiet ourselves to listen. It is a miracle that any of us have made it to worship now. But Where else would we be? We yearn to know God's powerful love and to know that wholeness is possible. In today's gospel, a person with an afflicting spirit interrupts Jesus, and Jesus sets the person free. And when does the miracle of this story and our stories begin? When we bring all of who we are, hopeful, afflicted, listening, grounded in relationship with God. So come, let us join this community with our whole selves, hopeful, afflicted, and grounded. Come, let us worship.
The gospel reading this morning is from the book of Mark, chapter 1, verses 21 through 28, and I'm reading from the Inclusive Bible. They came to Capernaum, and on the Sabbath, Jesus entered the synagogue and began to teach. The people were spellbound by the teaching, because Jesus taught with an authority that was unlike their religious scholars. Suddenly, a person with an unclean spirit appeared in their synagogue. It shrieked, "What do you want from us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." Jesus rebuked the spirit sharply. "Be quiet. Come out of that person." At that, the unclean spirit convulsed the possessed one violently, and with a loud shriek, it came out. All who looked on were amazed. They began to ask one another, "What is this? A new teaching, and with such authority. This person even gives orders to unclean spirits, and they obey." Immediately, news of Jesus spread throughout the surrounding region of Galilee.
When the poor ones who have nothing still are giving, when the thirsty pass the cup water to share, when the wounded offer others strength and healing, we see God here by our side walking our way. We see God here by our side walking our way. When compassion gives the suffering consolation, when expecting brings the hope that was lost, when we choose love not the hatred all around us, we see God here by our side walking our way. We see God here by our side walking our way. When our spirits like a chalice brim with gladness, when our voices full and clear sing out the truth, when our longings free from envy seek the humble, we see God here by our side walking our way. We see God here by our side walking our way. When the goodness good from heaven fills our dwellings, when the nations work to change war into peace, when the stranger is accepted as our neighbor, we see God here by our side walking our way. We see God here by our side walking our way.
Hello there. Today I'm going to talk to you about calling. Now, right now, it's the middle of a pandemic, which means that to see people, you're probably going to have to call them on the phone. Or maybe FaceTime them, give them a video call on Zoom. We've been doing a lot more calling than we've ever done before. I call my friends instead of going to see them and hanging out. I call my family instead of going to visit them. I call my teachers because I can't go to school. But you know who else calls us? And not on the phone or on the computer. God calls us. God calls us through people. The tricky part about God calling through people and experiences is that unlike when you talk to somebody on the phone or on the computer, you don't always know when God is calling you. When you call somebody on the phone, you hear a loud ring, 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 right? But God calls us in a way where we have to pay attention. Back during Advent, when we talked about prophets, we remembered that we have to look and listen and pay attention to see if we can hear the prophets. And it's just like that with God. Because the joy that God brings, and the healing that God brings comes through other people and the places around us. And part of listening to God's help and to God's love is by listening and helping and loving each other, our friends and family and our community, and others too. And that's God's challenge for us, because God is always there for us. And it's our job to try and listen to when God is calling for us.
Deuteronomy 18:15 through 18. The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among you, from your fellow Israelites. You must listen to him, for this is what you asked of the Lord your God at Horeb on the day of the assembly, when you said, "Let us not hear the voice of the Lord our God, nor see this great fire anymore, or we will die." The Lord said to me, "What they say is good. I will raise up from them a prophet like you from among their fellow Israelites, and I will put my words in his mouth. He will tell them everything I command him."
Today's reflection is on letting God feed us. Epiphany has been a time in this cycle of the lectionary where there's stories of calling. And it's been fascinating to hear these stories of Samuel, this young boy called to speak God's truth, and hear our scriptures read by our youth. And it's a hopeful thing to think about ordinary people being called to do the extraordinary, because I can't speak for you, but I'm always keenly aware of my ordinariness, the daily struggles, the effort that it takes to just take the next step. But I want to think together with us about what it means to be called. I think there's this sense sometimes that, especially when you think about stories of calling in our religious tradition, in the Bible, there's this sense that, oh, well, that's for the special people. There's some magical thing that happens, and something comes out of the blue, totally extraordinary to someone, and that's what the specialized calling is. And then there's sort of the rest of us that just live our lives and try and live them the best we can. But I think that the call of faith is something more complex and less simplistic than that. Calling is an incredibly deep affirmation of who each person is. It's not this extraneous or external or extraordinary thing, but it is a product of God paying attention to us, looking within and on us and seeing us and seeing each one, seeing me, and coming to us with a sense of possibility and invitation. And, you know, what's incredible as I've been thinking about this is that all across the biological world, creatures, species, adapt. There is this sort of parentheses, this sort of category of things that
when scientists observe a species, that could be counted as normal. The normal rhythms sort of handed to that species through the process of evolution. But then, of course, each species and each creature in its own way adapts. So there's this fact of who it is and what it is and where, and then there's some new bit of information. There's some new energy or force or threat or opportunity that pulls a creature beyond what it has known or beyond what it's normally able to do or normally does. And so I think of calling in this religious sense as a really a deeply natural thing, that for all creatures we are called beyond what we have known, beyond who we have been or what we have been, into something new, but it's never disconnected from who we have been or what we have been. And so there's this dance of the known and the unknown that each of us is called to get into, get out on the dance floor and to engage. But there is this question of like, what puts one in position to be able to see or know that new thing when it comes, that new bit of information, that new movement, new opportunity that the Spirit presents, because so much of the time, and our time and energy is spent, just hanging on, just figuring out what the next thing to do is, or what the thing we forgot to do that we need to do now is. So much of our time is spent trying to manage things such that we can make it to the next day. And the idea of being open to something new that is, coming unexpected and outside of what we've known is difficult for most of us. And so I think it's important to remember that God, in inviting us into new things, also has always been there and is here now to feed us, to give us some kind of sustenance and grounding that will open us up to be able to see a new thing, hear a new word, reconceive of tomorrow in a way that is unexpected in light of what we've known today. And so this story where Moses promises the people, like they're worried about their ability to follow and hear God or be with God or God to be with them. And Moses says, look, there's going to be one called up for you, a prophet like me. And then God affirms that to Moses. Yes, I'm gonna call someone to do this work of speaking to the people. And then in Jesus' ministry, in the synagogue in Capernaum, Jesus teaches, and everyone's amazed at his teaching, because he teaches with authority, as an integrated and grounded person who speaks powerfully to what is going on in their lives, what's going on around them. Somehow Jesus is threading together the tradition in their biblical texts with the beauty and the struggle of their moment, life in Galilee under Roman rule. And it's an incredible thing to think about Jesus as a listener, as a boy, as a young person, who somehow in there discovers his own unique calling, his own unique purpose, his own unique tasks. It's hard to think of Jesus that way because we're not taught to think of Jesus as a learner or as someone who had to work to pay attention to God. But that, I think, is a fact. I think Jesus was actually, in fact, human. And so there's like some shift that happens when a person allows herself to be fed by God, to be open enough to let go of, all that sort of keeps us focused and our nose to the grindstone, and somehow to surrender enough that God becomes the one that will allow to feed us, to make us, to allow us to become more grounded, to nourish and sustain us. And, there's this call to stop imagining that our fate is in our own hands, but relax instead into God's precious embrace, gracious embrace. And in that sense, God becomes the host to us in our own bodies, in our own lives, in our own selves. God is the one who nourishes and sustains us as us in our own lives. And I think part of the work of faith is like tuning ourselves into that possibility that God might come to us, to be with us, to sustain, nurture, feed, be present to ground us, give us a sense of stability and solidity that is beyond our sense of ourselves, that is deeper and wider and flowing from God's self and spirit. And in that space, we discover that we can be carried along in that love and grace of God. We discover that we can become what we did not know we could become, and to do what we did not know we could do. We adapt. We grow into something that wasn't before. And there is this magic that God offers when we can take God up on that offer to be fed, to be nourished in the life and flow and spirit of God, and that we can lay down our project of protecting ourselves or managing our lives or controlling this, that, or the other thing that we think we need to control to be safe or to get along. And somehow the call of God in the midst of those very real things that are not bad in and of themselves is to let God feed us.
Beauty for brokenness, Lord, for despair. Lord, in the suffering, this is our prayer. Bread for the children, justice, joy, peace.
And now, in the goodness and wholeness of God, go forth. Go. Connect with others. Laugh with friends. Cry with loved ones. Open your hearts to healing, even from those who have hurt you. Be kind to strangers. Feel the smile of Jesus upon us as we are grounded in the truth and healing of God. Go in peace.